Good evening, students. So welcome to another session. So till the previous session, we were talking about the topic called as principles of inheritance and variation. In the previous class, we have completed with the complete chapter called Inherited Principles of Inheritance and Variation. So today, let us take up with another chapter under the unit Genetics and Evolution. So this will be the last chapter under this particular unit called as Genetics and Evolution. So the topic what we'll be taking up for today is organic evolution, right? So let's begin with organic evolution. So we'll be starting off with another new chapter, right, which is called as organic evolution. So what is this evolution all about? Right, so let us have an introductory class today and we'll get into a few details with regards to evolution and what we'll be actually studying under this chapter called as organic evolution. So before we begin, what is this evolution all about? Right, so what is evolution? So if you have to define evolution, we start defining evolution as a branch of science, right? So that deals with, right, origin of life, as well as the diversity, origin of life and diversity of living organisms, over the ages. So this is how we actually define evolution. So what is evolution all about? So evolution is a branch of science which deals with the origin of life and also the diversity of living organisms over the ages. So evolution has two parts. One is talking about origin of life is called as evolution, right? The second one is the diversity of living organisms. So what does this mean, diversity of living organisms? We know that there are several different types of organisms have been evolved over the ages, right? From the time life began on this planet Earth till date, there are several animals which have been evolved from time to time. So that we usually refer to as the diversity of living organisms. So the study of origin of life as well as the study of diversity of living organisms over the ages is referred to as organic evolution, right? So the term organic evolution was coined by a scientist by name Herbert Spencer, right? So this is the scientist Herbert Spencer who coined the term called as organic evolution. So the term organic evolution was coined by the scientist by name Herbert Spencer. Now, what is the literal meaning of evolution? What is the literal meaning of evolution? Evolution literally means rolling out or unfold, right? Unfold or roll out. So what does this mean? Unfold or roll out? Unraveling, unfolding, right? Unfolding something which is actually hidden, right? So that is what we start calling it as unfolding or rolling out. So the literal meaning of evolution is unfolding or rolling out. Rolling out what? Rolling out the mystery of the origin of life as well as rolling out the mystery of the diversity of living organisms over the ages. That is what this is the literal meaning of evolution, right? And this term evolution was coined by a scientist by name Herbert Spencer, right? So this is what we have as a brief introduction with regards to evolution, right? So what is this evolution all about? It is a branch of science that deals with the origin of life and the diversity of living organisms over the ages, right? So the term organic evolution was coined by a scientist by name Herbert Spencer, which means to unfold, to unravel, or to roll out. So this is what is evolution all about, right? So one of the scientists called evolution as mystery of mysteries. He called it as mystery of mysteries. So what does this mean, right? Evolution itself is a big mystery, right? And he called evolution as a mystery of mystery. So we are going to, in this particular chapter, we are going to unfold the several things what several scientists have said upon the origin of life as well as the diversity of living organisms, right? So we are going to get into a few details about several concepts, several theories which were given by several different scientists, right? While they started pursuing their work with regards to origin of life as well as the diversity of living organisms. One thing what we need to understand here before we actually get into the topic is whatever statements which were made by the scientists were all, or rather are all considered as assumptions or hypothesis, because no one actually knows how the life originated on Earth. In fact, no one actually knows how the Earth existed or Earth came into its form, or rather how the universe came into the form. So what we are going to learn in this particular chapter is completely based on the hypothesis or the assumptions which were given by several scientists. So we'll be taking up with several scientists, their work, what they have stated pertaining to the origin of life, as well as the evolution of living organisms over the ages. Right. Okay. So the concept of evolution, right, starts off with the work of a scientist by name Lamarck. Right. I hope all are familiar with this scientist, Lamarck. Right. So the concept of evolution all began by the work of this particular scientist called Lamarck, John Baptist D. Lamarck. Right. So he was the one who started his work on the topic called as evolution. So he wanted to identify what could be the reason of evolution or diversity of living organisms. So in that context, he came up with a theory which is called as inheritance of acquired character. Inheritance of acquired characters. So this was the theory which he came up with. So Lamarck is very well known for his research work on evolution, and he came up with a theory called as inheritance of acquired character. So what does this mean? Inheritance, we have studied a lot of things about inheritance till the previous session under the topic called as principles of inheritance and variation. So inheritance is nothing but a character being passed on from one generation to other generation. Now that is inheritance. Inheritance of acquired character. Now what does this acquired character? Characters which are acquired during the lifetime of that particular organism. Right? So what do we mean by acquired characters? Characters that are acquired in an individual. Right? Characters that are acquired in an individual over a period of time. Right? We start calling it as acquired character. So acquired characters, there is one more term also what we use for it. We can call it as adaptations also. Right? So adaptations would lead to acquiring a specific character. Right? So based on that particular habitat where the organism is living, right? So based on that particular habitat, these organisms will start adapting themselves to the conditions of that particular habitat. As a result of which, they will start acquiring certain characters. Right? So once they acquire those characters are now passed on from one generation to the other generation, leading to the formation of a new species of organism. That was the thing which was told by Lamarck. Right? So what did Lamarck say? Lamarck spoke on something called as inheritance of acquired character. So what did he say pertaining to inheritance of acquired character? A particular organism living in a particular habitat, right, will start adapting itself to the conditions of that particular habitat, as a result of which this organism will now start acquiring certain characters. So those characters which have been acquired by this organism will now be passed on from generation to generation, leading to the formation of a new species. So that's how there was diversity of living organisms over the ages. So that was the statement which was made by Lamarck. Right? So Lamarck is well known for his work on evolution, where he came up with a concept called inheritance of acquired character. right? So any organism living in any place will start adapting itself to those particular conditions, leading to the formation of a new characters in them. And those characters are inherited from generation to generation, leading to the formation of a new species, right? So that is what we call it as inheritance of acquired character, right? Inheritance of acquired character, right? So this is what Lamarck had said. So once Lamarck gave his theory, that is inheritance of acquired character, in the later chapter, later topics or later sessions, we'll get more into the details of this when we take up each theory in detail, right? So we are just looking up to the overview of evolution, right? So once Lamarck gave his theory, that is theory of inheritance of acquired character, another scientist, right, a well-known scientist, right, by name Charles Darwin came into picture. Right, so the scientist Charles Darwin came into picture. I hope all are familiar with Charles Darwin. So Darwin was actually working simultaneously when Mendel was carrying out his work. So when Mendel was on one side working on inheritance, right, the laws of inheritance, Darwin on the other hand was working on the theory called as variation. He was working on evolution. If you could recollect, when we were talking about Mendel's work in the beginning of the class, of the beginning of the sessions, right? We said that one of the reasons why Mendel's work was not recognized is Mendel was a mathematician, so none of the biologists accepted his work. And at the same time, I told you that one side at that point of time, Darwin was more famous than Mendel, and most of the biologists were more interested in the work which was actually carried out by Darwin rather than Mendel. Right. So Darwin started his evolutionary work simultaneously when Mendel was carrying out his inheritance studies, right? The study of inheritance, right? So Darwin, we know that he is well known for his evolutionary theories, where he published a historic book by name On the Origin of Species, right? On the Origin of Species. Right? S-P-E-C-I-E-S, On the Origin of Species, right? So this was the book that was actually published by Darwin with regards to evolution, On the Origin of Species, right? So in this book, he came up with a theory called as the theory of natural selection, right? The theory of natural selection. So he came up with this theory called the theory of natural selection. Just like how Lamarck gave his theory, which was called theory of inheritance of acquired characters, Darwin came up with his theory called the theory of natural selection. And in this theory of natural selection, he said that, right? He said that the organism which is fit, right? Nature selects the fittest of the organism, right? So therefore, he came up with another postulate which is called as survival of the fittest, right? He came up with this postulate called as survival of the fittest. So in the survival of the fittest, or rather natural selection, what he says is organisms which are able to adapt themselves to a particular habitat, or rather to a particular environmental conditions, right? So those organisms will be selected by the nature, and those organisms are actually considered as the fittest of all organisms, right? So what did he say in this particular theory of natural selection? Organisms which have a better ability to adapt themselves to the environmental conditions is considered the fittest, and those organisms are the ones which are selected by the nature. This he called it as natural selection. Now, whichever organism is said to be the fittest of all the organisms, so that organism will obviously have better features compared to other organisms in that particular habitat, right? Try to get this right. Try to get this right, right? So what he said is the organism which is considered as the fittest of all, right? So that organism, right, which is considered as the fittest of all, will obviously have better features compared to other organisms that are present in that particular habitat or that particular environmental condition. Right. Now, since these organisms, that is the fittest organisms, have better features, those better features are inherited from generation to generation, right? And they are the ones which lead to the formation of a new species. Okay? So what did he say? Organisms which is considered as the fittest. That is, let me put it once again with regards to natural selection. So what Darwin said in his theory is, right, organisms which have the better ability to adapt themselves to the environmental conditions will alone be selected by the nature. And such organism is considered to be the fittest organism. So the organism which is considered to be the fittest, right, the organism which is considered to be the fittest, that organism will obviously have better features compared to the other organism present in that particular environmental conditions. Getting it? Right? Now, those particular organisms having the better features. So these better features, he started calling them as variations, what we are actually familiar with. So those better features are referred to as variations. Now, these variations, which is present in the fittest organism, will be inherited or passed on from generation to generation, leading to the formation of a new species. That is what Darwin said in his theory of natural selection. And that was the same thing he had written in the book called On the Origin of Species. Right? So this theory he also referred to as the descent with modification. Right? He also called it as descent with modification. Right? He referred to this as descent with modifications. Right? So this is what he said. Right? So what does this descent with modification mean? Descent is moving on from generation to generation. Right? Descendants. Right? It is actually derived from a word called descendants. Descendants is nothing but going back. Right? Our descendants. Right? From generation to generation. Descent with modifications. Modifications are the ones he called here as the variations. Right? So what Darwin said, when an organism is considered to be the fittest, that organism has better features compared to the other ones. So he called them as variations. So these variations are passed on from generation to generation, leading to the formation of a new species. That is what he called it as descent with modification. Right. Now, as per Darwin, right, evolution is a very slow process. Right? Evolution is a very, very slow process. Right? And since it is slow, each generation will start accumulating certain characters. Right? Since the evolution process of evolution is said to be very slow, each generation will start accumulating certain variations, or rather certain characters, leading to the formation of new species. Right? So as per Darwin, evolution is a very slow process and is a continuous process. Right? So evolution is a slow process and it is a continuous process as per Darwin. Because Darwin believed that these variations are actually said to be very, very slow. Once an organism possesses certain variations, these variations will be passed on to the next generation, and it keeps on going like that. And over a period of time, one particular organism will start accumulating those variations. Right? Once all these variations have been accumulated by a particular organism, that would now lead to the formation of a new species. That was the thing what Darwin said in his theory of natural selection. So the first work of evolution was done by Lamarck, where he came up with the theory called theory of inheritance of acquired characters. Then came in Darwin, along with his theory called the theory of natural selection. So once Darwin spoke about his theory of natural selection, right? So once Darwin spoke about his theory of natural selection, then came in another scientist, right? So then came in another scientist by name Hugo de Vries. I hope all have heard of him. We have recently also studied about him, right? Then came in a scientist by name Hugo de Vries, right? So Hugo de Vries is another scientist who had done extensive work on evolution, and he is well known for his concept called as mutation, right? So we have studied even in the previous chapter also, right? We studied about mutation, and we said that the term mutation was coined by Hugo de Vries, and the complete work of mutation was a result of the work carried out by Hugo de Vries in a plant called Inothera lamarckiana, right? So that's what we have said. So after Darwin came up with his theory of natural selection, then came in another scientist by name Hugo de Vries. So Hugo de Vries came up with his theory, which he called it as the mutation theory. He called it as mutation theory, right? So Lamarck came up with his theory. We called it as theory of inheritance of acquired characters. Then came in Darwin along with his theory of natural selection. Then came in Hugo de Vries with his theory called as the mutation theory. So what Hugo de Vries said is, right? So the cause of evolution or the major driving force for evolution is this mutation, right? So the major driving force for evolution is mutation. So what is mutation? Any sudden change that occurs in the genetic makeup of that particular organism, we call it as mutation. And we have also studied several types of mutations also, right? So the same thing what Hugo de Vries is telling here is the driving force for evolution is mutation. So these changes that occur in the genotype or rather the genetic makeup of that particular organism is responsible for variations, and once variations are seen, those variations would be inherited from generation to generation, leading to the formation of a new species. That was the conclusion which was given by Hugo de Vries, right? So what Hugo de Vries said, the major driving force for evolution is mutation, right? The major driving force for evolution is mutation, right? So this mutation, that is the changes that occur in the genetic makeup of a particular organism, is the one which is responsible for variations, and these variations are now passed on from generation to generation, leading to the formation of new species. That is what he said in his mutation theory. So as per Hugo de Vries, evolution is it is not a slow process, right? It is a random process, or rather a spontaneous process, and it is a discontinuous process. It is a discontinuous process. It is not a continuous process. Just like what Darwin said. Darwin said that evolution is a continuous process. But what Hugo de Vries says is evolution is not a continuous process. It is a discontinuous process. Because the reason for formation of a new species is this mutation, right? Which is not a continuous process. Once there is mutation happening in the organism, new changes are seen in that organism. Those changes are passed on to the next generation, leading to the formation of a new species. That is what we have with the theory called as mutation theory. So like this, there are several scientists who came up with their own opinion, right? Who came up with their own opinion on identifying what could be the reason for origin of life, or rather, how did the life originate on the earth, and also what is the cause of diversity of living organisms on the planet Earth, right? So those are the things what we are going to study under this particular chapter called organic evolution, right? So these are just a few scientists what we have seen. So in the later sessions, we'll be getting into each of this theory in detail. We'll be getting into Lamarckism, we'll be getting into Darwinism, we'll also be getting into Hugo de Vries' mutation theory. And we have one more theory also, which is called as neo-Darwinism, or we rather call it as the modern theory or synthetic theory. So we'll be taking up these four theories in detail, and we'll see what each of the scientists gave, or what were the postulates given by each of the scientists in each of those particular theories. We'll be talking about a few drawbacks also, their contributions, a few drawbacks of that particular theory also, so that we get a clear picture of what was told by each of these scientists with regards to origin of life as well as the diversity of living organisms. Right? So this is what we have, a brief introduction with regards to evolution. Finally, there was another scientist by name Dobzhansky. Dobzhansky. Right? So what he said is, right? He made a wonderful statement, right? So Dobzhansky made a wonderful statement saying that nothing in biology, right? Nothing in biology makes sense. Nothing in biology makes sense except under the light of evolution. Except under the light of evolution. So this was a statement which was made by Dobzhansky, right? So what did he say? Nothing in biology makes sense except we see it under the light of evolution. So if we have to study anything in biology, the basis for everything we study in biology is nothing but evolution, right? So that's what he said. Nothing in biology makes sense except viewed or except under the light of evolution, right? So this is what we have with a few introductory notes with regards to evolution, right? So now let's get into the topic of organic evolution. So we'll be studying evolution under two different heads, right? Or rather we can divide evolution into two different parts, right? So we'll study evolution in two different parts. The first one is origin of life, right? So we'll be dividing evolution into two parts, right? So the first part what we'll be studying is origin of life on the planet Earth, right? So the second part what we'll be studying is evolution of life. Evolution of life, right? So the first part what we'll be taking up is the origin of life, right? And the second part what we'll be studying is the evolution of life. So what does this mean, origin of life? How life originated on the planet Earth. The second one is evolution of life. So what is the diversity or what is the cause of diversity of living organisms on the planet Earth? So to study the cause of diversity of living organisms on the planet Earth, we need to first understand how life originated, right? So that's the reason why we have divided evolution into two parts. One is origin of life on the Earth. The second one will be evolution of life on the Earth. So first, let us begin with the first one, origin of life on the Earth. Right. So with regards to origin of life on the Earth, several scientists came up with several theories. Right? Several scientists, they came up with several theories to show that life originated in so and so manner. Right? But again, remember, all of these theories are nothing but hypothesis. Right? It is their assumptions based on certain research work what they have carried out. Right? It is not 100% true what we are going to study. It is all hypothetical research what was actually conducted by them. So there is no 100% proof that this one is right or that theory is right or this theory is right. So what we are going to study now is completely based on certain assumptions or hypotheses of all of these sciences. Right? So let us first begin with the theories, a few theories of origin of life. Right? So we have almost 6 different theories which was given by different scientists with regards to the theory of origin of life on the planet Earth. Right? So let us take up with this theories of origin of life. So under this theories, as I have said, there were several scientists who started working on the origin of life, right? And they came up with their own theories. So what we are going to take up is those particular theories. And as I've already said, these are all considered as assumptions or hypotheses. Nothing is 100%. We cannot say that it is 100%, right? Okay, the first one. So let us take up with the first theory. The first theory what we'll be talking about is, it is called as the theory of special creation. Theory of special creation, right? So this is the first theory what will be studied, the theory of special creation. So from the name itself, we can make out special creation. Right? So this theory was first put forth by a person by name Father Saurus, S-A-U-R-E-Z, right? So Father Saurus is the one who came up with this theory pertaining to origin of life. He called it as the theory of special creation. So what he said in this theory of special creation is life originated on the planet Earth by some divine power, right? So by some divine power, life originated on this planet Earth. So Father Saurus said that life originated by some divine power, right? So through this divine power, right? So through this divine power, life originated on the earth, right? So one example what we can take is, as per the Bible, what he said, right? As per the Bible, it is said that God created the universe in 6 days. And from that time onwards, those animals, including humans, have been present on the planet Earth, and they have been surviving from then on. Right? So what Father Saurus said is, God created the universe and all the flora and fauna in this particular universe. So from that time on, life started existing on this planet Earth. Right? So that is what the theory of special creation says. Right? So this is what we have in the first theory. The second theory what we have is the theory of panspermia. Panspermia, or it is also called as theory of cosmozoa. Right? The second theory is called as theory of panspermia, or it is also called as theory of cosmozoa. So this theory was given by a scientist by name Arrhenius. Right? So this theory of panspermia or cosmozoa was given by a scientist by name Arrhenius. I hope you would have heard of Arrhenius, right? So he was the one who came up with this theory called the theory of panspermia. Now, what did he say in the theory of panspermia is, right, the entire universe, right, what he said is life is distributed throughout the universe, right? What he said is life is distributed. Life is distributed throughout the universe. Right? So life, he said that life is distributed throughout the universe. Right? Now, since life is distributed throughout the universe, protoplasm from unknown part of the universe, right? So what he said, protoplasm from unknown part of the universe, right, reached the earth. Reached the earth. This is what he said, right? So what Arrhenius said is life is distributed throughout the universe, right? So you go to any part of the universe, we have life there. So life is distributed throughout the universe, right? So from some part of the universe, from an unknown part of the universe, protoplasm somehow reached the earth. Right? Protoplasm somehow reached the earth from the unknown part of the universe. How did it reach? It reached in the form of, right? It reached in the form of spores or germs. Right? It reached in the form of spores or germs. Now these spores or germs, he started calling them as panspermia. He called it as panspermia, or he called it as cosmozoa. Right. So what did Arrhenius say now? Arrhenius said that life is distributed throughout the universe. Right. So from an unknown part of the universe, the protoplasm in the form of spores or germs, what he called it as panspermia or cosmozoa, reached the planet Earth. So once this spores, that is panspermia, reached the earth, Now this spore started developing into a particular organism, right? That's how life actually originated on the planet Earth, as per the theory of panspermia or cosmozoa, which was given by Archimedes, right? So in the theory of special creation, Father Soros said that life originated from some divine power, right? Life originated from some divine power. So one example what he gave is God created the earth or the universe in 6 days, and along with that, all the flora and fauna also was created by God. And from then on, life started existing on the planet Earth. So what theory of panspermia or cosmozoa says is, which was proposed by Arrhenius. So Arrhenius says that life is distributed throughout the universe, right? Life is distributed throughout the universe, right? Now, from an unknown part of the universe, right? From an unknown part of the universe, protoplasm in the form of panspermia or cosmozoa reached the planet Earth. So once the spores reached the Earth, right? So these spores started developing into a new organism, right? So this is what we have in the second theory called the theory of panspermia, or it is also called as the theory of cosmozoa. This is the second theory what we have. The third theory what we have is, right? Third theory what we have is, it is called as the theory of spontaneous generation. The third one is the theory of spontaneous generation, or it is also called as theory of abiogenesis. It is also called theory of spontaneous generation or theory of abiogenesis, right? So this is what the third theory what we have, which is called as theory of spontaneous generation or theory of biogenesis, right? Sorry, theory of abiogenesis. So there are several scientists who support this theory, right? So just like we have theory of special creation by Father Soros, theory of panspermia by Arrhenius, there are several prominent scientists, right, who support this particular theory. Scientists such as Aristotle, then scientists such as Plato, then we have another scientist by name Thales, then another scientist by name von Helmont, right? So these are some of the prominent scientists of that particular time, right, who believe or who supported this theory called as theory of spontaneous generation or theory of abiogenesis. Now, what does this theory say? What does this theory of abiogenesis or theory of spontaneous generation say? Which we can make out. One is theory of spontaneous generation. Spontaneous means all of a sudden. Generation, formation, right? So what he said is, or what they said in this particular theory is, life originated spontaneously, right? Life originated spontaneously, all of a sudden, from non-living things, right? So that was the theory what he came up. So what did they say? Life originated spontaneously or suddenly from non-living things. That is what the theory of abiogenesis says. From non-living things. Right? So this is what is the theory of abiogenesis or theory of spontaneous generation say. Right? So most of the prominent scientists, as we have said, like Aristotle, Plato, Thales, as well as von Helmont, right? So all of these scientists, they believe or they supported this theory called the theory of spontaneous generation or abiogenesis. So what did they say? Life originated spontaneously from non-living things. That is the assumption what these scientists have, and that is what they put it in this theory called the theory of abiogenesis. Right? So all of a sudden, from non-living things, life originated. So they came up with some examples. So let us see a few examples what they give. right? So from the mud of river Nile, from the mud of river Nile, right, a few organisms came. So Nile is one of the big river, right, biggest rivers what we have, right? So from the river Nile, or from the mud that is present in river Nile, organisms such as frogs, snakes, as well as crocodiles evolved. So this is what they said, right? So from the mud or sand that is present in the banks of river Nile, organisms such as frogs, the toads, snakes, as well as crocodiles have been evolved, right? So mud is a non-living thing. So from non-living thing, all of a sudden, these organisms started to evolve. One more example of what they do is, from the manure, right? From the manure, right? Certain worms have been evolved, right? Worms such as the earthworms, right? So certain worms actually evolved from the manure, right? So from manure, certain worms have been evolved. One more example, what they came up is, from dew, right? So from dew, then from slime, then from sweat of other organisms, as well as from dry wood, organisms such as insects have been evolved. Right? Organisms such as insects have been evolved. So this is what they said in the theory of spontaneous generation or abiogenesis. So they don't know how exactly is this thing is happening or how organisms have been evolved. What they said is life originated from non-living things all of a sudden, right? Spontaneously, life originated from non-living things. So some examples what they came up is from the mud of river Nile. Here mud is a non-living thing. So from the mud of river Nile, organisms such as frogs, snakes, as crocodiles, as well as toads all have been evolved. Similarly, from the manure, worms such as the earthworms have been evolved, right? And then from dew, slime, sweat, as well as dry wood, all living things, non-living things here. From these non-living things, certain organisms such as insects have been evolved, right? So this is what they said in the third theory, which is called the theory of spontaneous generation or the theory of abiogenesis. Right? So this is the theory which is actually supported by several scientists by name Aristotle, Pluto, Plato, Thales, as well as one hand. Right? So three theories we have seen so far. One is the theory of special creation, which was actually given by Father Soros. So what Father Soros said is, life originated from some divine power. Right? He took up the example of that God created the earth in 6 days. And from then on, all the flora and fauna started to exist on this planet Earth. The second theory, what we took up is the theory of abiogenesis, right? Not abiogenesis, it is the theory of panspermia or the theory of cosmozoa, what we said. In that theory, Arrhenius said that, right? In that theory, Arrhenius said that life is distributed throughout the universe, right? Life is distributed throughout the universe, and from unknown part of the universe, protoplasm somehow reached the earth in the form of either spores or the germs, right? In the form of spores as well as germs, right? So this protoplasm reached the planet Earth. From then on, these spores or germs, what we call it as panspermia or cosmozoa, started evolving into life, and that's how life has been originated as per Arrhenius. The third theory, which is the theory of spontaneous generation or abiogenesis, says that life originated from non-living things spontaneously, right? So that's what they said. Life originated spontaneously from non-living things. Some of the examples what they came up is from the mud of river Nile, organisms such as frogs, snakes, crocodiles, and toads have been evolved. One more example, from manure, worms such as the earthworms have been evolved. And another example, from dew, slime, sweat, as well as the dry wood, organisms such as insects have been evolved. right? So this is the theory which is accepted by most of the scientists, such as most of the prominent scientists of that time, such as Aristotle, Plato, Thales, as well as what have you, right? So these are the three different theories what we have. So we have three more theories. So those three more theories will start taking up in the next session. We have the theory called as biogenesis, which started disproving this theory of abiogenesis. Then we have another theory which is called theory of catastrophism, the second theory. The third theory what we have left out is the theory called as theory of chemical evolution, which is actually the most widely accepted theory even till date. Right? So those three theories, let's start taking up in the next session. Right? Thank you.